Welcome to another Knocked Conscious, everyone. I have the pleasure of speaking with my gentleman over here, Mr. Mark Maresca. Now, I have to talk about the intro again. Mark, we have to talk about this intro because it's
I know
banger.
it
Jason
is
made this beautiful intro. And
awesome.
what's great is you and I and Jason met last
Yep.
week or a week and a half ago for lunch, and you came to Arizona for this amazing event. So, Mark Maresca of the White Pillbox, welcome to Knocked Conscious. Tell me all about Arizona, what the event was, how you got there, like how it all unfolded, who it involved. And I'd love to hear a little bit about this and then hear your thoughts about our great state of Arizona.
Well, first of all, one of the best parts of that trip was getting to meet you and Jason in person. And folks, we had already arranged, Mark and I, to meet right after my wife and I landed at the Phoenix airport. And we met at Poncho's, was it? And
Yes,
at a
sir.
restaurant. And Mark had a surprise for me. He says, we're going to have a special guest. And in my head, it was like, make it be Jason, make it be Jason, make it be Jason. And it was Jason. So I got my wish.
Yes.
So
We got
we had a
lucky.
chance to meet these two wonderful people in person. And I'll tell you, when you're in a vanishingly small minority like ANCAPs, anarchist libertarians, it's always nice to physically meet someone in person and shake their hand and be with them for a little while. There's just something over and above just being able to contact or communicate with people online. So that was a definite highlight of that trip. Just want to put that out there.
Well, thank you. It was certainly a highlight of your trip for me because I didn't see you the rest of the trip. So certainly for me, that was it was so nice meeting you. What's funny is you meet people and you're like, oh my gosh, these people are actually real. These are
Yeah,
real
yeah,
people. They're not just
yeah.
on a screen, on a microphone. How
Right,
many
right,
things do we not even know it's AI anymore? These people are like, oh, I can
right.
get this video presentation that looks and sounds and gives the feel of me, but it's the authentic me. And we literally pressed flesh and looked each other in the eye and said hello.
Right.
And it was great.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
I
yeah,
was so
yeah.
glad we were able to do that. So thank you for joining me for lunch. It was
And
great.
we ended up getting there earlier, a few days earlier, so we could take in Sedona, Arizona. Um, we've been to Arizona many, many times, but we'd never been together to Sedona itself. That's where Larken Rose's event was held in Sedona. So we decided to get there a few days earlier and just take it in. So for the first time, we get to see it together, and it is a really interesting, amazing, awesome place. There is so much you can do. There's so much to see. The the landscape and the views are just absolutely breathtaking, and the people there are great. And there's so many great places to eat. So we thoroughly enjoyed our first couple of days there. The weather was totally with us, even though it was. We're in a sort of a hot spell. We've been in a hot spell.
Yeah.
The country, Arizona has been here where we live in Florida has been, but that day, those days, it just happened to be sort of on the overcast side, a little rainy here and there, nothing that, affected the trip. So anyway, we got real lucky. We just
Well, I'm
had a
I'm so
ball
glad.
there.
I'm really glad you had that experience because it's 108 today. It was 111 the last 3-4 days. It hit 118 about a week ago. Yeah, so you got
Jeez.
very lucky. So, but you were up in a little altitude. So you were there
Yeah.
for Larken Rose's Approaching Humanity event. So
Yes.
tell us a little bit about how that kind of came to fruition for you and how and what Larken asked you to do and
Sure. Sure.
and how that went. And love to hear a little bit
So
about it.
yeah, a couple of months ago, I guess it was, Larkin sort of put out there that he was going to put on an event, an in-person event with speakers, uh, uh, at in either it was going to be either in Sedona or in Prescott, depending on where he could get a venue. And he ended up getting a venue in Sedona at the Sedona Performing Arts Center up there. And he basically wanted it to be something that where he would basically launch the new book he's working on, whose title is Unbound, and he just wanted to tie those two things together. Uh, so he was reaching out and sending out feelers for who might be interested in speaking at that event, to take on particular topics of their interest, but also topics that would fit into the framework of the event itself, which would closely parallel with the book's chapters as well. So this way, there would be a cohesiveness there. And he selected me as one of his options, and I mean, I said yes, like on the fly, right there. Like there was no question of not doing that. For me, it was only a question of can I fit it into the schedule so I could do it in person or remotely. And at first, it was going to have to be remote, but then things came together and I was able to be there in person. And he also brought in some other speakers, some of which you may know of. There's Patrick Smith of Anarchast. There's Craig Hargis of the Bad Roman podcast. Jason Bassler of the Free Thought Project. Carrie Wedler. There was James Corbett. So he got a lot of people together who agreed to be speakers here. A few of those were remote, but most were in person. And basically, he talked to each of us directly about what topics interest us, and he honed in on the topics that would best fit his presentation, his event, and then slotted us in at the various places along the day that would fit in the general theme that was going on. His preference was for pretty much most of the speakers to really limit what they had to say within, say, an 8 or 10 minute time frame, so that the audience would it would be a variety of topics that are coming at them, and they wouldn't get bored. He interspersed those speeches or talks with a few comedy skits, some music, and other things in there. So he made it a sort of a rich event that would be interesting across the board. If you're familiar with Larken's major book, The Most Dangerous Superstition, you have a rough idea of what Larken talks about primarily, which is the belief in political authority and how that is an incoherent, immoral concept. That book was, this is sort of his words, but he's talked about this with us. That book was sort of his intellectual, rigorous, logical framework for offering the idea of why political authority is invalid and immoral. So anyone interested in that would get this logical, rigorous framework. But I believe his plan in this book, Unbound, and in the event, was to really appeal to the general audience who might not necessarily be persuaded by raw, logical, rational arguments, and instead try to appeal to what resonates within individual people. And that's why he had a variety of speakers. So, for example, Craig Hargis of the Bad Roman podcast is a Christian. All right, so he believes in Christ, but he's also an anarchist. So one of his talks was about why it's
My favorite. No kings
uh-huh.
except
That's
Christ
it.
is king. It's like my favorite contradiction of that, and I get it, but I also don't. But I'd love for you to share. It's like, but it's one of those ones that
there
we.
you go.
Yeah, but go
Right.
ahead. I'd love to hear
And he
a little bit
so
about how he
and so
approached that.
one of the things Chris talked about was why Christians should be anarchists, should be anarchists. Why that's logically sound, why that's morally sound within the Christian framework. So once again, if you're a Christian and you are new to the ideas of anarcho-capitalism, libertarianism, that could appeal to you. Now, immediately after Chris's speech was Patrick Smith, and the title of that, I believe, was Why Atheists Should Be Anarchists. Okay, so
That's
you have
brilliant to go back to
exactly.
back.
And
I
that
mean, it
and
really is
Larken,
brilliant because
yeah,
you do the push pull right away, and you
exactly.
just kind of get it. You clear the air with it right off the bat without people asking questions. Because
That's
people, the
exactly
first thing
right.
you say, "What about
Right.
atheists?" You know, it's like they literally
Yeah.
go to that. So he addresses it right away. That's really brilliant. It's actually really
and that's
brilliant,
just and
and
that's
it
just
and is interesting because
two examples.
I'll give
Go ahead.
you a heads up. Like Jacob Winograd of the Libertarian Christian Institute, I met a
Right.
couple of their people at Freedom Fest, for example, and I haven't met Jacob yet, but we've spoken on multiple podcasts and done a couple of podcasts. See very differently on certain things, but it's the same type of thing where I ask that question, where it's that constant comeback of how that works, and I love how we still work to try to reach out in the framework of that.
Exactly. And those are just two examples. There were, other speakers who gave other perspectives. There was one speaker that talked about building intentional communities. That's just another way of saying, someone sort of trying to be an entrepreneur, building consent-based voluntary communities, which, of course, we would hope eventually would evolve into anarcho-capitalist, larger, modern Western uh, technological communities. But starting that off, and the failures and road bumps that they've encountered along the way. So if you're entrepreneurial or if you're engineering and that have that sort of mindset, that would have appealed to you. So from all these different angles, Larkin was really just trying to present this sort of cohesive perspective, which still maps directly with the most dangerous superstition, the belief in political authority, but really makes it much more personal and relevant to people's individual tastes. So that's sort of the framework of what it was about.
And the truth is, let's be honest, unless you're affected by these concepts directly, and unless you're not like us, wired the way we are in this fringe, we're wired fringe inward, not like foundation outward, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like our people were conceptually inward and go from concept to foundation versus people like come from foundation and they don't get to concept. They don't get our concept. They just build whatever foundation was given to them. Like, they don't even think about it. You know, it's very autonomous almost in a lot of ways. And that's culture, family, upbringing, all these kinds of
Right.
things, environment. However, sometimes the percentage of us are wired to see the fringes. And I love the way you do that. One of the things about, if I may, about Larkin's thing he mentioned on his last podcast was that what is it? He went back in time to speak to his former self.
That was awesome.
I want to hear
He's
a little
so
bit about that. Not to give a spoiler, but do you want to share a little bit about that? Because I think that's brilliant. Because I would have had that. I would love to have that conversation with myself.
that, I hear that. Yes. So basically, as we know, Larkin is an anarcho-capitalist, so he does not regard the state as legitimate. But like most of us, there was a time in his life when he wasn't that, because most of us, virtually all of us, grew up as statists because we're indoctrinated into that through our environment. It's not our fault, it's just the way it is. Okay, well, at a certain time in his life, just as with us, if they talked about politics, they advocated for statism because that's what they believed, or at least their flavor of statism. So basically, what he did was he put a video feed up on the screen of himself as if he had traveled back in time to him, whatever it was, 15, 20 years ago or more. And he, on stage, debated himself. He was debating himself. And what he was basically doing with that is not just trying to reveal the contradictions in statism, but also show that this is about ourselves coming out of this mental framework, this mental fog that we have that we believe in statism. He's making it personal and showing, essentially saying, yeah, even me, even I had to come out of this. I'm as much a victim of this as the rest of you. And there I am. There's the victim up there, still struggling and trying to make sense of statism when you actually can't make sense of statism. So he was arguing against himself. And it was very well done because, he's live on stage doing his side of it, but he pre-recorded himself as himself in the past. He had to have
That's
timed
brilliant.
that exactly right. So I give him credit. He happened to schedule me for my third speech, I think it was, right after that. So I got to watch it from the what's it called, from the side of the stage. I wish I could have seen it head on. I will once the live stream recording is published. But it would have been cool to actually see it. But I know that there were points at which he meaning past Larken, status Larken, would start to get a little confused and not know what the answer is. And often when that happened, the video feed would get blurry and grainy as if that was his own mind trying
Like, his
to
brain is
make
like
sense.
frazzling. That's
Yeah,
brilliant. That's
exactly
that's
right.
I love
Exactly.
that. That's such little details that are so beautiful to add. I love that.
Yes, he's. I have to give him credit for managing all that detail. That's just one skit he happened to do, and obviously prepare well ahead for and practice clearly, and all the rest of the whole thing. He just put it all together. There was a technical crew there, a professional technical crew, who actually did the taping of the video, wiring us for sound, our mics, and all that. So Larkin wasn't doing that, thank goodness. I don't think it would have been physically possible. So it was in totality, the whole thing really came off very professionally done, very, very slick. So anyway, yeah, it was fun all the way around.
I'd love to hear how was the turnout on it? Was it pretty full room, and everybody interested, and people that were there were just focused on what was going on?
People were extremely focused. When you have an event that's all the way out in Sedona, you're not going to get like the largest crowd. So they
Oh, it's
certainly
definitely
had.
remote. I will say you had to make an effort to come here. This isn't like just some simple jaunt down the street. This took some planning
Exactly.
for sure.
Exactly, it was, and not all libertarians necessarily might be able to afford it. So a lot of them may have. I don't know if it was live streamed live, uh, so I'm sure a lot could not make it on that basis. But there had to be at least 30 or 40 or 50 people who were there in attendance. I never quite counted. I mean, I looked at the crowd, and this is a very large auditorium. It's the Performing Arts Center, so it probably seats 1,000. So the audience we saw did not look like it was that full, but there was
Yeah,
plenty of
but
people. And when they
it's and
applauded,
it's
you heard that
relative.
applause. It's relative, exactly.
You
Uh,
relative, and just the nicheness of it. I mean, you're getting the people who are actually focused, probably a lot of makers, doers, thinkers in high
exactly.
levels within the group. So
And there were people from all over the place because I was lucky enough to talk to some of the folks in the audience. I either approached them and spoke, or talked to them and they either talked to me, whichever. Uh, and they're from all over the place, but to a person, they just loved it. They really were able to relate to it, in whatever respect, whichever part most resonated with them. So it's good he did this. It really is, and I'm glad he did.
yeah, it sounds great. So how many speeches did you do? And if I may, I'll I guess I'll ask is how you could reference the speeches to something you've done, some work you've done on your podcast, for example, or under the Myth of Authority, somewhere you could maybe point us to, oh, this kind of episode 16 is where I started talking about this or something like that. Can you share a little bit about what you shared without going, obviously spoiling up Larkin's thing? You're just kind of brushing
Oh yeah,
over
yeah,
the
yeah.
topic.
No,
So
it's
love to
not a
hear that.
problem. When I spoke to Larkin about it, this is whatever it was, a couple of months beforehand. We went through that, like what aspects of what I am interested in on my podcast fit. So I went through just a kind of a short list of major topics that I focus on a lot, and then he just basically listened to that and he said, "Yeah, three of those are like spot on with parts of this presentation that I want to offer." So for me, let's see, I jotted them down just so I've had 'em. So one of them is
How
mental
dare you
isolation.
be prepared, sir? I'm supposed to
I
stump
know.
you, man.
Nah, I'm a good student. I take my notes. Uh, my first topic was mental isolation. Now you might think that doesn't sound like anything I've talked about before. It's a branch of it, and it's the way that some of what I talk about intersects with the topics of this event. So when I talk about mental isolation, when I spoke about it at the speech, I was basically talking about the mental isolation that manipulators use as psychological technique or tactics to keep our mind where they want them to be. So, like an abusive spouse, for example, is going to make sure that his wife has limited controlled communication with her family or friends. That's isolating her mind. A toxic religious cult, the cult leaders or the cult leadership is going to make sure that the cult members only think about the cult as the center of their world, and they're going to isolate them from communication with family and friends. And we know this happens. That's a technique to make you think you are in the best world you could possibly be in.
You leave these
And
Scientologists alone, sir. How dare you? How
I
dare
never
you?
said Scientologist. I never said that word.
You didn't
It's,
say a word. I'm not accusing
I
you
know.
of
I mean,
anything.
come on, Mark. Science is in the name, so it must be okay.
I am the science. Can you believe and have faith? I am the science. Yeah.
I am the
Anyway,
science.
please continue.
But
But yeah,
anyway,
it's a
so
great point.
this tool of manipulation called isolation, my speech kind of tied that in the sense that, well, that's what the state or what statism does. That's what the belief in political authority does. It isolates us into one way of thinking, one framework only, and that is government is a-okay. I mean, really, Those three words encapsulate the isolation that statism does to our mind. Government is A-OK, meaning that's the only way to think. Even if you're critical of it, you still need it. And that's it. That's the belief in political authority, the unquestioned
Yeah, because
belief.
it's not
Yeah,
that we need it, it's how. If we do it the right way,
exactly. You
of
never
course.
question the whether, only how. And that's the same thing with an abusive spouse. There's no other husband you can go to. The religious cult, there's no other religion you can go to. Oh, it's only this. Oh, yeah, that's right. It's only this. It's only this. It's
And
only this.
and
That's it.
we can say that social media and all these things have helped with information. However, algorithms have steered the conversation in certain directions, right? Clearly,
Right.
right? And just like media, just like what they share on television is they're curated. They have it curated through digital means.
And the real tie-in of that concept of isolation is the way I presented in the speech was, notice that the husband, the abusive husband, he doesn't have a physical wire in the mind of the wife. The cult leader doesn't have a physical wire connected to their mind, and the government doesn't have a physical wire in your mind. It's manipulating your mind to self-comply with that isolation. So what I tried to make the audience understand is that this is something they managed to do so that you control yourself. You bind yourself. And that's where the bound and unbound concept of Larken's book comes in. Unbound is really the process of unplugging unplugging yourself from that cage or coming out of that fog, which, because they don't have the physical wire in your mind, you actually can do it because they don't have a physical connection. It's within your mind to be able to come out of that. And that was one of the key points I made in that first speech. And what I tried to do there was then to allow the audience to see that they are already in the process of getting unbound. It isn't just you're bound. That's it. That's it. No, I tried to say you're actually in the process of getting unbound. Think about the cult member a year later after they joined. Well, when they first joined, they were starry-eyed and they believed in it and there's no wrong here. A year, 2 years, whatever it is later, they might have heard things in the outside world about the cult. They may have seen some cult members leave. There's doubt creeping in. And with that,
They got on Netflix and saw a documentary series about it.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly right. That's not even a joke. That could happen.
It's not a joke. I've heard the weirdest stories how people got out of a situation.
But in that process, in the middle of it, before they get out, but they're, now they're starting to doubt. Notice it's feelings that are mixed. It's doubt, it's anger, it's confusion, it's resentment, it's isolation. It's just this mix of feelings that demonstrate that the person is now battling. They're battling their loyalty to the cult, which is a conscious thing. I got to be loyal. And their unconscious mind is sort of working things out and untangling itself and saying, I don't know about this. And that's the feelings. And then I drew the audience's attention to the following. That's you right now with statism. You, 20 years ago, when you first, were a young adult becoming aware of politics, admit it. I was like, your first impression of government is it is the force of good in this world to do the best thing for humanity, to make us peaceful and prosperous. That's what you thought.
We're born to pledge it and sing and stand and praise it. I mean, we literally, I saw this video of this kid sitting during a national anthem and this old guy standing behind him and he gives a little smack in the back of the guy's head.
I saw that.
And I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay, I would have turned around. I said, sir, I recommend that you don't do that again. Cause I don't know what you want, but that was not appreciate call for anything.
Right.
So you can use your words, but you didn't use your words. So we already, I'm going to give you grace on the first one, but that second one's not going to be doing too well for you. And then you hear the story. Oh, now they're good friends. And you're like, oh, so the guy just took a kid under his wing and made him a statist. Congratulations. What a beautiful story. Happy ending, right? Happy ever after.
Yeah,
It's
no, he
so
didn't. He
silly.
did that kid no favors. No, exactly
None.
right. And that is us at the very beginning of our sort of political awareness. We really think government is like the cult. It's beautiful, it's perfect, it's going to do these great things when we first become aware of it, when we're naive. So I drew the attention of the listener, whoever it may be, to that fact. You 20 years ago regarding the state, wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, and you now, you don't have that same look on perception of the state. Admit it. You're not an anarchist. I'm not saying you are, but you're doubtful. You have skepticism. You know the government can be corrupt. So your feelings are mixed too. You get angry at things that happen. You get confused. You get dejected. You get blackpilled. It happens to every normal person in the same way, that same contrast. You then, you now. The cult member then, the cult member now. That's you, everybody. You coming out of the cult mentality of statism. So I wanted them to relate to the fact that they themselves may be succeeding now in slowly coming out of the cult mentality. That was sort of the essence of the first of my three speeches. And believe it or not, I actually did compress that into about 8 minutes. So
I love that. So I have to darken the pill, sir, as I always
oh,
do.
it's okay. It's all right.
The human condition is so we understand that. How many times do we complain about our jobs or this or that? I'm going to quit. I'm going to
Yeah.
move on. I'm going to make change. And we don't. We don't because that nail that sticks out, right, is the one that gets hammered. And that social conditioning of you got to get along to get, move along or get along to go along or whatever, go
Yeah,
along to get
exactly.
along. There's a lot of that human condition because back in the day, ostracization, ostracization.
Ostracism. Ostracism, I think.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
ostracism. There it is. Ostracism. Sure, I'll make up words all day. But that
Sure.
ostracism is that was death back in the day. And nowadays you can live on your own. You don't have those fears per se the way we had those fears. I've not seen anyone approach it from that aspect of going against the grain isn't certain death anymore. Has anyone tried to culturally ingrain that in the liberty movement? Because it's kind of been an epiphany, but kind of come to me through talking with you, working with Jason and Jake and everyone, that it's like a human condition of not how we actually think, because we're like, yeah, this is BS, right? But getting
Right.
us there, because if you're the first one to do it, they're going to make an example of you, so you don't want to do it. How do we integrate that courage, I guess, or lack of fear, perception of fear on
The
it?
be- the way I relate to that, and tell me if it fits with what you were saying or it doesn't, is so if I understand right, you're saying n- n- not feeling as much that going against the grain is going to be harmful to you, having a little bit um more strength, perhaps mental strength, to
Yeah,
test
fortitude.
test the waters. Right. So
Yeah.
see, it's funny. I see a white pill in that, a huge one. I
Of
remember
course
growing
you
up.
do. And
Of
this
course
is
I do.
why I love you, Mark, because I don't and I know you do. So I bring it.
As far as I know, through most of history, and certainly during the times I grew up, 50s, 60s, 70s, right in there, if you said something that was against the grain, you were shut down. You weren't shot down, you were shut down. Like you would know it. You would know it by the way people look at you. You would know it by what they say. Your parents might say something or whatever it is. Going against the grain was, I mean, like visibly something you should not do, teachers. If I look at it today and I just think, not of specific examples, but sort of a general impression I have, if a child says something that's a little bit a little bit different, or if I don't know, an adult says something a little bit different, I get the sense that people today are a little bit more likely to say, well, that's you. That's how you think. That's okay. Everyone teach his own sort of a thing. I get the impression that that's increased a little bit, perhaps a lot. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if that's the same observation you have, but I feel people have reached a slightly increased level of tolerance for different views. What do you think?
I think that I mean, that's one of the best ways to divide us is to not allow us to have tolerant views. So I don't see that because well, let me put it this way. We may start seeing it ourselves. And I think to your point, we aren't as naive going in like we were as children. So we're probably a little bit more informed and a little cynical already maybe going in, which is good.
Mhm.
So that's a good part. But the problem is, I think the divisiveness is what keeps them in power. So they really feed on
Oh yeah.
getting that wedge in there. Not saying they're succeeding, but that's the energy they feed the system, I
Yeah,
think.
that's one of the classic techniques is to divide because you do not want them sort of collectively or in mass looking at you, the state. You don't want that because that's the light of day. That's shining the light of truth sort of onto what that thug, that political person is doing. No, no, you don't want that. You want the attention off them. And if they're off them, well, the best way to do that is to let them fight amongst each other. And I'm not saying that's gone away. When I say white pill, I don't mean it's gone now. We're in utopia. Not at all.
Not at all.
It's still working.
You see it as the cracking and the hope. I mean,
It's a trend.
you've had a 50-year, you know what I mean? Your vision is gone stretched out for your entire life. So you have a much even different perspective than myself, than anyone along this path, because it is a timeline in a weird way. And like you're along somewhere along this line, right?
Hmm.
Don't know where it is, but it either moves up and down depending on your experiences and things like that. And for us, once we crack it, it's just this accelerated drop off where we go from
Right,
like 0 to 100
right, right.
in or we go from like 100 to 200 in 1/10 the time we took from 0 to 100. You
Hmm.
know, it's just
Hmm.
like because it accelerates because it just opens, you know,
Oh, yeah, that's the
and that's
snowball
just a
effect.
beautiful thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right,
So the first one you're talking about here is the isolationism. We
right.
went through it, COVID. So let's use a real life
That's
example of this isolationism, right?
that's right.
We
That's right.
lived
That's
this COVID nightmare where they
right.
isolated us,
Right.
didn't let us connect, told us to stay home, all these things. And then we obviously had this thing today where some guy pleads a fifth like 842 times
Hmm.
and no one's going to prison. No one's getting drawn and quartered. What's going on? So let's talk about a little bit about that. How a real world example of how COVID would be an example of your isolationism and how they used that against us. What methods,
Yeah.
like they did,
Yeah.
how they did that.
Right. And that's so interesting that you brought that up, COVID, because that's an example of physical isolation, which that's rare. It's rare that you dominate someone by imprisoning them, by locking them in your cellar. That's a pretty rare thing. I say cellar as if you were, had a kidnap victim. But the state essentially did something like that by putting us all on house arrest, or most of us on house arrest during the early part of COVID. And Fauci, who is the person you're referencing now, who is in front of Congress today, not testifying, he was largely responsible, or at least had a causal role in all that happening because he advocated for that, for locking down businesses and locking and closing schools and keeping people at home. And that's physical isolation. And yes, you're right. That's going to have a psychological effect on people. And it obviously has. We don't even know all the damage that that did. But of course,
And that
that's
was
some,
once again to protect us. That was for our
yeah,
protection. Think
it's for
about an
our protection.
abusive relationship. I'm only taking your phone away from you so you don't hurt yourself, baby. I love you. I
Right,
care
right.
about you. So I need to control every part of your life because I know it's
Exactly.
best for you.
Right.
It's so interesting how you can equate these to an abusive relationship.
And
It's
that's how it's also mental isolation and mental manipulation. It's like, I'm thinking about you. What's fascinating to me is that this happened 6 years ago because it's 2026 now. COVID was 2020, and so it's a little over 6 years that all that was playing out. And I don't normally, as you probably know, the particular insights in my work that I've stumbled upon, like I say stumbled upon because I didn't invent them. I just found them through just thought and reasoning and so on, arrive at the conclusion that the transition to a free society has already commenced. And I brought this up at the one of my speeches. It has commenced. It isn't in front of us. It has started. Now it's at its baby steps, but it has started. And I haven't really tried to pin down when you might say it actually started, because I try to use a rough time frame of about 5 to 10 years ago, because that's when the internet matured to the point where it's so utterly decentralized information content that propaganda just can't do its job anymore. And I place that in the 5 to 10 years ago time frame. Now that just happens to coincide roughly with COVID. I don't mark COVID as the actual causal inflection point for that, but it works so perfectly because during COVID and for 1,000 years before that, everybody would have done exactly what the government wanted them to do in a pandemic, and they did do that in COVID. Almost everyone completely complied. They did isolate themselves mentally and physically. They
They
did
ratted
that.
on their neighbors, Mark. They
They
ratted
did.
on their neighbors.
Yeah, isolation wasn't all there was. There was that. A lot of bad stuff came out of that. I'm not so naive to think, and I don't think you are either. Most people shouldn't be so naive as to think that if the government could have kept us locked down to this very day, this is July 2026, if they could have continued those lockdowns, vaccine mandates, passports, masks, all of it, to this very day, they would be doing it to this very day. There's nothing in them that's so angelic that they would have said a couple of years into COVID, oh, we've damaged society enough. We need to lighten up. No, 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 no. They would be doing it. But that brings up a very interesting question, Mark, which is, why aren't they doing it? Aren't they all powerful? Don't they have full control over all of society and propaganda and guns and tanks? No, they're not
Yeah,
doing
but
it. In fact,
they're running out
a
of all their
few
missiles. They're losing all their
they used
interceptors.
them up over there in Iran.
They can't start a war on another front, Mark.
Yeah, their gun belt is low on ammunition.
Oh boy.
No, they would be doing it if they
No,
could.
but you make a great
We
point.
know that.
Yeah,
We should be grown
absolutely.
up about this. We should be
Yeah,
realistic about
100%.
that.
If why there is no power
So,
given back. It is
right,
not
right.
it is not yielded back. It is
Which of
wielded from or taken back. It's not
which
wielded back or yielded.
which causes us to ask a very, very big question. Why are they not? Why are we not on lockdown to this very day? COVID's still around and it is not conquered. I mean, it still happens. People get it. Okay, well, a couple of years roughly into COVID, the whole thing fizzled. The monster white pill of that is that the state is not as powerful as you think. It is very vulnerable. It's vulnerable to the environment in which it exists. The environment of COVID, early COVID, February 2020 roughly, and 5,000 years before that was an environment where the state could do pretty much whatever it wanted within the context of the belief in authority. After that, not so much. I'm not saying we live in an anarchic utopia. No, 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 I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the environment changed right in that time. There was an inflection point where the state was in a new environment, a decentralized information environment. Its propaganda couldn't work as effectively anymore. And COVID is what revealed that. It brought it to light. It took a little time, it took a few years, but the skepticism that arose, even the mini amount of skepticism that arose in those early years of COVID, was enough for the state to back off. And it did. It backed off. So far as I know, every vaccine mandate was canceled. Every airport requirement canceled. All the schools, as far as I know, were reopened. Why? It's because they could not continue in that environment. So they're not all powerful. Apparently, they are just as vulnerable to the environment of skepticism as anything else. So to me, that's a monster white pill because I don't think there's any going back at this point. So that's
Yeah,
one of my
but would you
conclusions.
argue that it galvanized people's belief in the state as well? Because I would argue I watched a little bit of this hearing this morning. I just listened to
Yes.
it and I just yelled at it for 3 minutes and I was like, okay, he's not going to, and then turned it off. I listened to Rand Paul's opening statement, but then I listened to the next gentleman's opening statement and he's like, this is just a witch hunt going after, and you're like, dude, You're a fucking liar. I'm sorry, you're a fucking liar. You lied to us about this thing and you murdered human beings over this bullshit. So my question would be this: if it wasn't for the information knowing the absolute bullshit that it was, Mark, if it actually had teeth, if this thing was 30% effective to kill you, we probably are still in lockdown, right? Like we're probably like, I mean, what the information that we found out was that this thing was literally flu 2.0, right? Kind of, right? That's basically
Right.
what it is. So, and they manipulated that. But what if it is actually an actual thing that really you literally somebody get it and like within 3 hours they're fucking dropping dead? That would put so much more fear into us that if we saw something like that, right? Would you argue that the severity of it helped, or the lack of severity and the ability to get that information out helped it?
Well,
So
the
it kind of plies into
uh,
your decentralization because the information was correct that it wasn't as terrible as we thought it was, as
right,
early
and
as we
that's
got it.
that right, exactly. That's how we knew so early that it was ineffective because of the decentralized uh, internet. Had we not had the internet, or had we had like the older internet where CNN and NBC were
Cronkite,
still utterly dominant, yes, then they would have just told us that this thing is as bad as it is. We would have had to believe that because you have no counter proof to that, and that probably would have continued to this day or would have continued much longer. But that's not the reality. Of course, the reality
right?
is that even though we were told it was going to be a black plague and it was going to destroy a significant percentage of humanity and so on, well, that's not the reality. It's
Yeah.
of course we can always
But
construct an
those were the
alternate. Yeah.
lies too. Like those
Mhm.
are the lies because you get someone like a Sam Harris. Well, you're right for the wrong reasons, and it's like, no, I was fucking right because I fucking paid attention, man. I was right
Right.
because I paid attention, and I got vilified, and I got so mad this morning because I'm like, this motherfucker destroyed families, friends, groups of people, literally took sides over this. I felt awful because I was the only unvaccinated person in my family group. And I'm sitting there, they're talking about giving it to their kids. And I'm sitting there biting my tongue, like going, you're going to murder your children. Do not give them this. And I can't say anything because if I do, I'm then like I'm the outside of that thing, outside of that group
Mhm.
again. I mean,
Mhm.
the amount of, for even someone like me with my independent streak, felt this responsibility of not being wrong too. Like telling someone it wasn't what it was felt irresponsible of me because I'm not a doctor either. You know what I mean? Like it's interesting how
Right.
we all play that psychologically in ourselves.
And of course, you know me. I my descriptions and my analysis and my reasoning applies to the trends, to the bigger overall trends. So if we use the COVID and the Fauci examples as to examine the trend, then let's look at that in the real world. So in the real world, 6 years ago, Fauci was pretty much never doubted. He was Mr. Science, top science. If you were to doubt what he said, you would have been, and you were shut down. You were shut down on YouTube and the other platforms. Okay, put a pin on the trend at that point. Fauci, 100%, everyone believes him. Anyone who's against it is shut down. Now put your pin in today. Fauci's in front of Congress pleading the fifth. Okay, read the comments under whatever feed you're looking at. Well, we'll just say, for argument's sake, half of them say this guy ought to be, you know, a lot of bad things ought to happen to him. The other half say, what do you mean? He did his best. He was the best we had, and this and that. Okay, now look at your trend line. 6 years ago, 100% of everyone was on board with this madness. Today, 50% are. We shouldn't feel black pilled that 50% are still in that cult mentality. We should feel good that 50% are out of it. They're not ANCAPs, but they're out of it. That's a good trend. That's really my main point.
But the counter to that, Mark, is
Yeah.
that 100% are still in the cult mentality. The other 50% are just in a different cult mentality at that point. They just don't believe in Fauci. You see what
That's
they believe in something though that's not, and it's like
right.
at what point is it not the other side? Like for me, it wasn't even the other side. I went
Mhm,
from neocon raging retard neocon
mhm.
to libertarian party thinking third party was an answer because definitely wasn't going to go Democrat to
Right,
literally seeing the human condition that that's impossible too. I went
right.
through that so quickly and it's different for everyone. But like once you crack it there, you still have to crack the other thing. Like they didn't crack, they're still in the group. I would argue there's that 100% are still, well, not 100. We're two people that aren't, but that big percentage is, it's just half of them are in this still group galvanized and the other half are in the anti Fauci uh
I think you
galvanized
have
group,
done.
almost
I
just
think
as blind.
you've done a very important thing. What you just said. You said you've brought out what essentially is the essential, one of the most essential mistakes that the libertarian movement has done for a half a century. It's looked at this situation of people believing the myth of political authority and looked at it as a binary problem. A binary problem. It's one or it's the other. If you are not an anarchist like us, you are as damaging to the world as any statist. It's one or the other. You got to get on board with us 100% or else you're useless. That's the big mistake we've made. And by the way, I made that mistake. That's me up to like a year and a half ago, literally.
But isn't anarchy
Because
an absolutist state? I mean, it's an absolutist state of zero, you know what I mean? Of no kings, right? In a weird way, it does become absolute like speech. We would argue, I don't know how absolute you feel about speech, but I'm close, other than death threats and like doxing people.
right, the right,
2A, I'm pretty absolutist about that. Like,
right,
so I'm
right.
curious where it almost doesn't, it has to almost be absolutist, doesn't it? For it, and maybe it doesn't. I mean, I guess the
Well, what
absolutist has to be within to allow other people to coexist and not try to infringe on them.
there's really two topics that emerge out of that discussion, and they are
Yeah.
completely unrelated. One of them is moral judgments, non aggression principle judgments. Okay, yes, that's an absolute, meaning a person should be absolutely never aggressed against their body or their property. Absolutely, meaning it's always wrong to violate the integrity of someone else's body or property without their consent. You're absolutely right. Okay, now that we've established that that's an absolute, let's move to the other unrelated topic. The other unrelated topic to that first one of the absoluteness of NAP violations is what exactly does it take for the world to get from a world where there's mostly governments and states to a world where there are no governments and states? What what does that transition look like exactly? That discussion has nothing to do with absolutism. That's the mistake that
So it's almost
the
like
liberty.
it's not the destination. We're gonna get there. It's the journey
Is the journey and
portion
the
of it.
mistake, and the mistake that again I'm right in there with the ones who are blameworthy in this. I never
And
thought
what's
about
beautiful
it.
about this, Mark, is the point is we understand our fallibilities. This is why we believe what we believe, I think, is because
Right,
we
right,
understand how
right, right.
absolutely corruptive we can become or how easily we can be manipulated or how we're just humans. We make mistakes. And
Exactly
then
right.
we just have to own up to them. That's what makes it beautiful. And I love that we can criticize ourselves or at least look at ourselves critically.
And by the way, just so you know, the reason I'm using these harsher sounding terms is because I've noticed when I use softer sounding terms, it doesn't resonate with the audience as much. It's as if being soft about it makes them comfortable. So if instead I were to say, use terms like we were blameworthy for not picking up on this, if I were to say, well, it's understandable that we were not as insightful as we could have been about what? Well, about how the transition to a free society would work. That's going to make someone comfortable, and they might not quite get the point once the point is communicated.
Well,
So,
I'll be
I,
honest. I love telling people it's like I would cheer on dropping bombs on children. That's what I would do back in the day. Like, if you want to hear how stupid I mean, it's not like I directly cheer that on, but that's
Yeah,
what it was.
I see
That's
what
what
you
I
mean. Yeah,
supported. So it's like
right. Yeah,
I'm culpable of this horrible ability to be completely callous. So let's take a step back and see where we
and,
can uncallous it.
but let me just use that tangent as an example because you can look at yourself and say, or we can look at ourselves because I was statist too, and say, wow, that's true. My the things I would have advocated as a statist would have included possibly dropping bombs on innocent children. How could I possibly do that? Well, the only way that's possible is if you're really not thinking about the dropping of the bombs on innocent children as if you personally were the pilot dropping the bombs. Because if you were personally the pilot physically dropping the bombs, you'd be a pretty heinous person. And I don't think you would have done it. In fact,
Yeah.
the proof is you
I
never went
think
into the service to do it. You literally
I did,
didn't
but
do
I did
that.
enlist. I enlisted at 17. I just failed the physical
Right,
with
but
my
I
leg
don't
at
know
the
that you
last guy.
intended to drop bombs on
No,
children.
but imagine, yeah, but if I may, let's put ourselves in these shoes of these guys in Iraq and
Yeah,
Afghanistan. That's where I
yeah,
probably would have been, right? Um,
possibly. Yeah,
Look at the suicides. I mean, you hear a soldier come home, it's like we're told by our government that the right thing to do is to kick down this door and shoot this woman in the head and shoot that baby twice.
right,
And then we get home and we're told thank you for doing that. Then they
right.
don't know what we did. They just thank us for this generic service thing that we did. And that plays even more inside. And look at 22 suicides a day. I mean, imagine the mental struggle that someone who is like, you know what I mean, who was put in
Yeah,
that position by their government. And you unless you've been in that, I don't even know if you can get to that broken mental state internally, that internal conflict,
well,
unless you're put
yes,
there.
yeah.
So
That
it's
just
hard to conceptualize, you know.
and that the reason we can't conceptualize it, it's so alien to how our minds evolved to work. We're not supposed to be subjected to environments like that. And so when we do, whether it's by choice or whether it's by circumstance, whatever it is, when we're in a situation like that, where a soldier is expected to literally kill innocent people and does it, well, then you don't know what's going to happen in that mind. There's a part of that conscience that grandma or mom and dad taught them not to hurt. And then there's what their country taught them to do, or their sergeant, or whatever indoctrination led to that. And those are going to conflict. And good Lord, what's going to come out of that is going to be a very broken mind. So to me, all that does is prove how wrong statism is because it produces exactly
100%.
those results, consistently produces them. It's not accidental or tangential. That's like built into
Mhm.
it. So,
And
uh,
it also brings in the people with a certain mindset already and then gives them tools that already have
yeah,
some kind of mindset. Like it's like that's not exactly good. You know, make a
right,
Charles
right.
Manson and then send him out in the world. Make a Ted Kaczynski and send him out in the world. And you're like, oh yeah, that's brilliant. That
But
sounds great.
and that is quite a tangent from where we were, which was like the
For sure.
libertarian movement and a strategy of thinking how the only way to get from here to there is to make these pure 100% ANCAPs. And this, by the way, ends up being, I think it was my second speech or third speech, where I literally talked about that. That was the error I and the rest of us made for half a century, thinking that the only way to get from here to there is to make these pure 100% grade A ANCAPs. And of course, that turns out to be wrong when you examine empirical evidence, psychology, human action. When you put these libertarian 101 type pieces together, you realize, oh, and you, of course, look at the real world of the internet and so on, you realize, oh, no, we're not alone. That's not the only way it happens. The way people get skeptical is not purely by being exposed to us, the Luke Skywalkers telling everybody be ANCAPs. No, that's not going to scale. You may convince a few people over the course of your lifetime to become anarchists. You're not going to convince a population. And even the most powerful influencers in our space are not going to convince more than a small slice of people in their lifetimes. So, how can it possibly happen? Well, it's because you don't have to be 100% for that to mean something. And the internet is taking care of that other part of it. The internet has partnered with us not intentionally, it's just a side effect of the internet, that it waters down propaganda. If propaganda is like hard liquor or whiskey, consistent with your show, if it's whiskey, what does whiskey do? It clouds the mind. What does watered down whiskey do? Cloud the mind less. That's propaganda. Propaganda's function in its purest form is to keep the mind clouded. The internet has said, no, that's not happening anymore. People are not going to get a full on dose of propaganda every day. They're going to get a fifth of that. They're going to get a half of that because why? They're picking their own content now. Sorry, it's mathematical. They are picking their own content. And it ain't CNN all the time, and it ain't Fox all the time, and it ain't Washington Post all the time. It's cat videos, it's auto repair videos, it's reruns of Leave It to Beaver, it's comedy videos, it's content they make themselves. Take that totality of content that the internet has made available, and the percentage of that that's propaganda is obviously mathematically less than it was 5, 10, 15 years ago or going back in history. And I'm sorry, propaganda is the oxygen supply of the belief in authority. The belief does not sustain unless it's got relentless, continuous, successful propaganda. And those days, Mark, are over. So the beginning of the erosion of the belief in political authority has already commenced. We're in it. We're in the baby steps, but we're in it. And that was the point of either my second or third speech.
I love that. I love that. So let me pull this one up from Derek. Derek's been around from our If by Whiskey days. Welcome, Derek. I think libertarians should take 5 strong talking points, value principles, and push it out to American people. I know this has been done before. I still don't have the thinking path on this. It's very interesting that Derek brings that, because Derek would say he comes from a side as well. He's not there yet, just like I wasn't there yet at one point, and everyone's not there yet. And to your point, I think you're right, but we do have to consistently move toward absolutism, because it's like a relationship. If we're not moving forward, like, what are you doing in the relationship? You're stopping, or you're stagnating, and those are problems for that movement, right? So I'm curious, like, what would be 2 really good talking points for libertarians? Not instead of 5. Let's think of 2 really good ones. What would be 2 things that you could just say, or a question or something that could get you to just break that first, that little pause?
Before
Any
I
thoughts
give
on
you before I give you the 2, I'm going to ask you, what's the purpose of the questions? What do you expect to happen? What do you hope to happen as part of that
It would be more
questioning?
to draw out that person's ideology so that they can see it as they express it from the outside almost, right?
Okay,
It's
now,
very similar to Larkin's mirror kind of aspect. It's funny. I
okay.
talk about my psychic stuff. I got to share this, Mark, because it's crazy.
Yeah,
I
I want
wake
to hear
up
it.
one morning. I literally woke up one morning. I look at my girlfriend. I go, I just realized I'm a fucking mirror. I hold myself up to people and I show them the absolute worst in them, and they hate me for it. Like, it's literally what I do to people. And it's this real strange thing, but it's like a true friend stabs you in the front. So I'm like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, if I
Yeah,
care about you, I'm going to tell you what it is that's the problem. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
and it's an interesting thing. And I thought the mirror, and then it's funny, Larkin's next episode was the mirror thing where you talk about that. So
Mhm.
that's what I would like, is for the person to be given the comfort, feel comfortable enough to answer without getting jumped on by libertarian autists like us. Uh, you know what I mean? So that would be my thing.
Okay, now we're not done, and I'm going to
Okay.
continue this line of questioning. Why
I
do you
love
feel you need to do that? What is it you want to happen when you bring out whatever it is in them? What's your goal or what's your expectation after that to happen?
At some point, the questions are inescapable and generally lead to a cognitive dissonant moment. And it would
Okay.
probably be 3 or 4 questions in. I'll give you an example. Someone who says they're not for violence, but for national health care, for example. Well, you have to tax it. Well, taxing costs money. And if I think you're stealing from me, that's tax, that's theft. I refuse to pay. At some point, you're going to have to come get it. And if I refuse to pay it, at what point do you do it? You knock down my door, you steal it from me. That's violence. So you don't, for example, that's one example where I would say you're not really anti-violence, you're just different kind of violence for your means.
You, but you still have a goal in mind.
Yes. And it's just more for
what's the
them. Oh,
uh
for them to realize, for them to have that cognitive dissonant moment of seeing it more from our perception, not 100%, but more breaking away from theirs is really
okay,
the thing. Is if you can just peel a little bit away, you know what I mean? It's like a
right,
sticker, right? The
right.
rest of it kind of starts hanging more and more, and it starts kind of coming off.
Right. And I want to let you know that I'm with you on these pathways, and
Yeah.
I want to take you through what I did with myself. So I'm not doing with you
Yeah.
anything I
No, I
haven't
love
done
your
with
questioning.
myself. So
Yeah.
and let me just now take it off of you and to put it back to myself. When I asked myself those very questions, I kept trying to be a bit of a scientist and say, okay, but why are you doing that? And when I would answer that question, I would then ask, yes, but why are you doing that? And I would keep making myself answer those questions. And again, I want to backtrack to the 50-year libertarian movement. No one has ever asked those questions at all. The why are you doing this has never been asked to that deep level. It's only been just do it. Just tell people about our ideas. Move on. Just tell people. No, I'm not going to stop with myself. I'm going to say, why? Okay, so you just ended off there with you want their mind to be a little bit open. Why?
That's a great question. So the why for that would be, with an open mind, we can discuss more things without confrontation. We can speak more collaboratively, and it allow for better ideas or more ideas to be expressed. And more ideas will allow for the better of the more ideas to rise to the top.
Okay, why is that a good thing? Why are you doing that? Why do you expect that to be a
Because I love
positive
I love
result?
humans, man. I was sent here to save this place,
Okay.
man. Leave me alone, Mark. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's
No, no, no.
because the truth is,
I'm not
I do have
criticizing
a
it. I'm only
care. I no, no, no. I know. I'm just being glib too, but I have a deep passion for. I do care about people living their life. I don't need to live their life for them to live it. And I think that everyone
perfect.
can and should be able to do that as long as they don't impose on others. So my own
Perfect.
ideology is where, I guess that's where that would lead, right?
So those questions then force us to reach a branch point in our why am I doing this questioning. And the branch point puts us in two different directions. One of them is it's possible both of these are reasons too, by the way. One of them might be the reason I'm doing this is because I have met a human being and I want to help them. That person, Joe, Diane, the actual individual human being I'm meeting, I want to give them an insight or a clearing of the fog that will make them happy that they now have this better insight. Why would I why would I want that? Well, I think it's because that happened to me. Circumstances in my life woke me out of this fog of statism, and I'm really glad that happened. I've had a better life because of it mentally. Now, in some ways, you do see the terrible things more clearly, but I'm sure glad I came out of it because I would rather not be in that fog. So, right there, I'll stop and say, that's a good reason to talk to others, to help them. The other branch, though, is well, I'm doing this for a bigger purpose. I expect this to be part of a bigger goal of spreading ideas generally out there, of maybe doing my part to nudge us closer to a free society. Okay, hold on. Those are two very, very different goals. So now I'm going to challenge you and say, since I presented, I don't know if there could be other reasons one might do this, but to me, those are the two that stand out. Do either of those two resonate with you? And if you don't mind telling me which, if not both, and why?
I I think I was sent here to help people. So I think it's the former, not the latter.
The individual. Yes.
I see in each person something. It doesn't, it's not the same as what you or I are. It's matter of fact, I'm probably disagreeable with most people, but it doesn't mean I don't see the greatness in them.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
my personality,
Yes.
my behavior has nothing to do with what I see in people. And when I hear a song, when I see a piece of art, something that
Yes.
just absolutely evokes an emotion that I didn't even know I had
Yeah.
prior to hearing or seeing it, or something makes your hair stand, like that's what it's all for.
Right.
That's what it's for. And people getting in the way of that, that's tyranny. I don't know. It's like expression. It is all about expression, because I think everyone's beautiful to express something that they can share or add to the beauty of
Right.
everything.
Yeah.
As stupid as that sounds, it
It
really is
doesn't
that.
sound.
And people who
Uh,
know me probably don't believe that.
I've
Or at least
I've
people who
met
know
you.
me through this, because I'm so disagreeable. But
No,
anyway.
I've met you, and I know you're sincere about that. And so I think your answer there does steer more into that first branch, where it gratifies you to talk about these ideas because you believe it could help those individual people. And I'm really harping on this. The individuals, their individual life could be better if their mind gets a little more open. And you know that because that's what happened to you. And you do feel like you're glad you have these clearer insights into politics and the world and so on. Now, that has not addressed the other branch that is also explaining why a lot of people uh, talk about these with others. It's because it isn't so much that I know this might help that person, but I hope it has an effect on getting us to a free society. You do see that those are two very different things, correct?
Absolutely. I would think the former, though, would be the correct method to, because once you have the one-on-ones, and then the one, one becomes two, two becomes four, and then it's exponential to 8, 16, 32 and all that. That's when the culture then would shift in a general sense. So it would follow in the individual path.
Okay, hold on now. That you did tie those two together. They're not tied together.
Right, but
One,
how are they not tied together? Because I think that would follow the other, or you could force the culture and have people, you know what I mean? You could push it from both
right.
sides, or no.
Well, the reason I say they're not tied together is because empirically, there's no evidence for that. We know of that. I know of
Ah,
no movement in all of human history where spreading the word through talking to people or trying to persuade them. I'm not talking about government persuasion. I'm talking about
right.
basically word of mouth or messaging or activism, peaceful activism, has ever literally changed the major course of human events.
Good
I,
point. It does
okay,
require action. I mean, it goes beyond that. We obviously would then have to create communities once
right,
those things are
right.
internally, and those would grow. But yeah, I can see how you are bifurcating those two, how they are separate.
And I think it's important to bifurcate them because the satisfaction you can get from convincing a particular person and knowing that, wow, that I had an effect on their life, or I may have had an effect on life, that would have to be like the totality of your expectation so that you don't end up feeling frustrated. Because if you mix it with the other side and say, yeah, but I also want this to be a chipping away at the state. Okay, that's exactly why 50 years of libertarianism has created 50 years of frustration, because the expectation that, yeah, I'm going to make a difference. I'm excited. I'm idealistic. You're forgetting that, oh, maybe it should just be to help others. And instead, it's like, no, no, this is a grander picture I'm building out of this. And suddenly, this less than realistic expectation taints what you're doing over time, because the human mind is going to be like, yeah, but years have passed. I've been doing this and I don't see anything happening. I'm going to check out of this, or these ideas are really bogus, obviously, because no one's believing it, or
See the
people are stupid.
1970 libertarian that isn't you. Just
Exactly,
everybody's given up,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
Just it's a joke, right? For sure.
So, in one sense, it is unrealistic, and in fact, it doesn't achieve the end sought. We 50 years in, we are not closer to a free society because of activism. It achieves a lot of frustration. That's not too great because we end up infighting. We end up, feeling we wasted our time. We feel like we have many feelings, and all of those are out of that second branch. If you're on that first branch, you're really not going to get that because you're just talking to people and you're letting them heal out of cultism, the cult of statism, in their own time. Now, again, I am exactly where you were up till only a few years ago. Well, it's because we could not have come to any other conclusion because we really did feel like, well, wait a minute. If we don't talk about it, how are these ideas ever going to get out there? We're this small minority. We're the only ones who know it. Obviously, you got to talk about it. So, Mark, what the heck? Like, doesn't the second branch have to exist for us to get to a free society? And that's the insight of my series that answers that question. No, that's not the only way. That isn't the only way. We had it wrong. No blame on us. We could not have known the internet
Right.
was going to come along and
Being
undercut
wrong isn't
propaganda.
bad. Being wrong is just an opportunity to change course, like to pivot.
And it's
That's what
also like,
science is. Science is a search for wrong. It's to make, because what things we can't prove wrong are right. That's how science should be
I love it. I
like
love it.
driven
It's
the way.
it's like blaming Isaac Newton for not knowing about quantum physics. No, it was too
Right.
early. It really was too early. He would have,
Right.
but he didn't. And for us, pre-internet, we could not have imagined a technology that would come along and partner with us to chip away at skepticism toward statism. We could not have imagined that. But guess what? It happened. We have the technology. It
Yeah,
has emerged. It has become
I love it.
its own unintentional way that instead of creating 100% red pilled grade A skeptics of statism, which is, by the way, something we could do if we get the right person in the right mindset, we can actually do it. It's hard, but it can be done. But you can't scale that. That's impossible to scale. It just will not happen because why? Mainly, most people are just not interested in this topic. I'm sorry. We're a chess club,
And that's what it
and
is. It
most
is.
people aren't that interested. But that's not a black pill. That's the reality of our side of the coin. Our side of the coin is we have the X-Man power that we could potentially create a 100% grade A skeptic of statism, an anarchist. We can do that, but we can't scale it. But the other piece of the puzzle is our partner, the internet, that has come along. And I was almost literally saying this in my speech. The internet is doing literally the opposite. It's our perfect complement. You know how a complement is like a puzzle piece where you
Yeah.
lack, it fits?
Mm-hmm.
That's the internet. The internet cannot just by itself create anarchists, but it can chip away at skepticism because it has diluted propaganda. A thimbleful of skepticism is increased for anyone who uses the internet because their time is less spent getting propagandized. A thimbleful that's scalable times 8 billion. That's
Yeah.
increasing skepticism at a scale we could never have done. So the internet is our partner. And this was my main white pill that I communicated in my speeches at the event, was that we are not alone. We're not isolated anymore. We have a partner. Now, it's true, it's not doing what we would do. We would like it to convince people all the way. Yeah, but that's not going to happen. And it doesn't have to happen. It's okay for 8 billion people to get a little more skeptical every month in small, very tiny increments, because that creates the stage where the state cannot survive anymore. That's decades down the line. But we are now tangibly and sustainably on that very path now, and it's unstoppable at this point. It's a curve. It's an exponential curve. You know how exponential curves start off real slow, and
Mm-hmm.
then they reach an inflection point, and then it's off the map. If you zoom
100%.
in, if you zoom into that inflection point, we've just started it. So it barely looks like it's off, that first slant. But
Yep.
like anything else, that's a exponential curve. it's happening. It's just not as visible right now. But anyway, that's the long and short of that particular speech that I gave that day.
I love it. So we've been here hour 15. I love the time. I'm
Wow.
so grateful for your time. And once again,
Thank
this
you.
is time warp. Like we snap finger and time
It's
flies. But
amazing.
how what are you pretty strong economics wise or on the libertarian side? I wanted to pull up a comment from Derek and
Yeah,
comment
please
him on
do.
if you're up
I'm
for it.
certainly
Okay.
not an expert, but I'm familiar.
Uh, okay. So Derek, this is we are not status. I would argue that Mark and I, the two Marks, are not status. We would probably oppose Social Security, all this other stuff. I want to pull up this one, and I'm going to read the comment. The best thing that Trump has done is the account for kids, the $1,000, because we can explain how to invest and save. Now, although at a 50,000 foot level, that sounds really good. Donald Trump just stole $1,000 from each for each child to invest in his corporations. Not
Okay.
in not into something you can invest locally or anything. No, it goes into their corporations. And that gives them power. They literally stole money from us to do this. And I'm not saying good or bad or indifferent, but that's the fact. So we have to address that is the elephant in the room. So I was wondering what your thoughts on that is. If this Trump is a good idea, bad idea, what are your thoughts? Because like from an economic standpoint, I'm just yelling at it going, oh my gosh, we literally just did another upward transfer of wealth through tax
Okay.
dollars.
So if I understand right, because I don't follow the specifics of
Oh,
what he does, he basically
yeah.
issued money or allocated money for some sort of children-related
Yes. So
project.
every child born after a certain date gets $1,000 to invest in some stock or something internally, but it's not like your own thing. It's still within the system of stocks or something.
Right.
So every
Okay.
child gets $1,000 to
Right.
start.
Right. Well, it's Derek, right? Well, so I guess I would ask
Yeah.
Derek, allocating money for children sounds like a very, very wonderful thing. And I don't think Derek personally is the only one who thinks that. I think there are probably,
100%. Derek's
I
heart
th-
is in the right place. I can attest for Derek.
and I would also venture to think that there might be more people than just Derek who do believe that money for children is a good thing. By the way, I'm with Derek. I think that money for children is a good thing. So Derek is not wrong. And I think Derek and me, Mark, are probably not the only two humans who think that money for children is a good thing. In fact, Mark, you yourself may think that money for kids is a good thing. Do you happen to think
I'm
that?
guilty. Yeah, guilty.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's three
I
of us.
hate that you're
So,
so calm about this, man. I hate that you're doing this so well. I
well,
just
just
dislike
so
it.
we're
I don't
clear, I wasn't talking. Just so we're clear, I wasn't talking about a particular program project. I'm speaking in
no,
very general
absolutely.
terms.
From a
Money
50,000
for
foot level,
kids
compassion, money for kids is good.
is good. So, and again, I think what I'm trying to point out is Derek's and us are probably not the only one who feel that money for kids is good. There are probably a lot of people who do actually feel that way. So then the real question would just be a moral question. If Trump feels that this project is so good, then why does he need a gun to point at us to extract that money? If Derek and the rest of us are right, then we collectively would offer our money consensually to these children for the particular project that he has in mind. You shouldn't need a gun pointed in the face of people to get the money for that project. And the proof of that is that Derek and you and me and many others already think that money is good for kids. So it's actually quite immoral to think that the only way to get money for kids is to point a gun in people's faces. So I would challenge Derek to consider whether he would personally use a gun in the face of an innocent person to take their money for the project that he likes. Because if Derek himself would have reservations about doing it, then it is not morally possible for Derek to delegate that right to Donald Trump to do that same thing.
That is beautiful. And I will say Derek has been amazing, and we've slowly we've slowly gotten into Derek's head, because we started with like Anatomy of the State and Rothbard and Mises, and he said he read some of the stuff and he's really starting to open this stuff. And it's a long haul, Derek. It's a long haul, but man, I will say personally how proud I am of just that you're open to this. Not even
Right.
where you are on the scale. I don't give a shit where you are. I care that you're trying. Like
Yeah.
like you have to give yourself grace. Like I can only imagine, because I had the same battles going on in your head that you probably have going on. It's like, wait a minute, but children, and then this, but then apply that, not just for that, apply it to surveillance, apply it to your house, apply all those same things for children. We could use the same compassion for children and women and the underprivileged that we use for all the policies that we do.
Right.
and
Right.
and
Right.
that's and that's the damage that we find ourselves.
Right.
Not that you're the victim of the damage. They're putting that in your head. So it's just one of those things that are so hard to break. Like, how am I still a good person if I'm against a good thing? And you're like, you're not against the good thing. You're actually for the same good thing we are. We're just
Th-
against the way of doing it, or a way of
this
implementing.
ties so closely to one of my speeches in that event. Derek is a good person. Derek is the best of us. He's one of us. He is doing what all generations of humanity before him were not able to do. Think about that. Derek and all common people, average people. I'm not saying Derek's a common person. I'm saying he's like
Well, we
everyone
all
else
are. We're
in
all
the
common
it,
people.
right. But this generation is doing an amazing thing that no human generation has ever done, and Derek is one of them. They are slowly coming out of this belief that they need moral rulers to defer their moral sensibilities to. They're starting. They're not all the way there yet. They're not fully unbound yet, but Derek and the rest are achieving this incredible achievement of slowly coming out of the belief in political authority. It's taking a while, and that's okay. We cannot judge a victim like Derek and all the rest of us of not coming out of the cult fast enough. No, everyone heals at their own pace. Okay, we got lucky. Circumstances in our life, the dice rolled, and we happened to get lucky enough to be exposed earlier. Derek's being exposed right now, and he's coming out of it. Good for him. Keep it going. Keep doing that. You're on a wonderful path, Derek. Keep it up. And that's the rest of society. The reason that this generation is able to do what no generation has done is because they have the gift of the internet, helping to clear the fog of their mind, because the propaganda out there is being watered down. Derek's mind and the rest of their minds are starting to get more clarity. That's why they are heroes in my book.
I agree 100%. And I don't even know how Derek found us, but I'm just grateful for it, because
Awesome.
Derek has said so many things that I used to say.
Hmm.
I mean, I could write half of Derek's comments for him, only because that's the ideology I understood. I
That's
didn't
where we
know
were.
differently, right? And it is
Right.
just information. But Derek, just that you're open and that you come on here and share this stuff, like you talk about the Social Security. I remember Rechtenwald said, just give us back our money plus interest, and that's it. Just be done with it. Give it back. Let us use it how we want. But that would create some kind of inflationary problem, obviously. So maybe, I don't know, pay it back in different, I don't know how to do that, but there's got to be solutions. And I'm just so grateful, Mark, that you spend on a Wednesday night, just it's late for you. I'm just grateful that you can hang out and share these
I love
brilliant
it.
ideas.
Yes.
And I'm
It's
just grateful that everything tied in the way we just talked about this, and how the event went. So thank you
yes,
for
yes.
joining. Is there anything else that we could talk about, before any topic you want to bring up before we call it a night?
No, I think we covered everything. I just want to make sure everyone's aware of my YouTube channel. It's at the White Pillbox, um, and you'll find my content on there. I'm also on Substack, but the Substack link is on the YouTube notes every week. So yeah, uh, thank you for having me. You have another note there.
Absolutely. So last comment here is, yes, I think your path is good. Just need some group stuff. 100%. The group part is one of the hardest things because we do
We
find
need.
ourselves
Yeah.
isolated. Derek,
Yeah.
reach out to me. Go on the at Mark Shumples, go on whatever it's X or whatever. Mark Shumples is everywhere. Just connect with me. I'll just get in touch with people in, you mentioned South Carolina. I know Rob Yates in North Carolina. I know some people in Georgia. We got some great people all over the place. So we can connect you with somebody to talk to in a group, even up in Massachusetts and definitely New Hampshire, because New Hampshire is one of those free state people. So Mark, how can we get a hold of you? What can we watch it? And Derek, listen to Mark right now. He's going to give you what you need. There's a 23-part series on the myth of authority that Mark did. Share, please, how we can get a hold of you, Mark, because your stuff is just, it's brilliant just the way you lay it out. So please share
Yeah,
that with.
yeah, sure, sure. I made it. I made sure I spelled it very simple and straightforward. It's the White Pillbox, the White Pillbox, all one word. And you look that up over on YouTube. So it's at, in YouTube terms, it's at the White Pillbox, and that's my channel. And from there, you can see all my content. Look in the playlist section if you want to see the series that Mark is referring to. It's my 23-part Myth of Authority series, and for folks like Derek or anyone else, you could start right there at the beginning. And if you don't mind going through about, well, it is 23 parts, and I guess roughly each one is about a half hour, although you could put it on like 1.25 speed and you'll still get the gist of it. Uh, Take that course. It's free. You just listen to it as you're vacuuming or driving or anything else. And it does take it nice and step by step right through the whole thing. And I hope that it helps. And I would love your comments, in particular you, Derek, because you clearly are interested and have a mind and you're curious. So put something in the comments there. And in any case, go to that section of YouTube and my playlist, and or any other video you like, and that's where you get my content. And in the notes section, I'll also have reading material, YouTube videos that all connect to all this. So if you're a person who likes economics, you'll see economics related references. If you like legal theory or law, philosophy, you're going to see different ways of getting at the same conclusions depending on your taste. So check out the notes on every video I make.
I love it. Mark, thank you again. And the
Thank
funny
you,
thing
Mark.
is, Derek, what you'll see is what it was, I think it was the second or third of the series, and you
Right.
literally predicted an ice shooting. Like you literally predicted the tyranny of
Before, yeah,
ice, and you just
yeah,
called them a military person in a foreign country, but they were just kicking down the same door in a uniform, being
they were
uniformed,
right,
defenders of the state. And
right.
and if I may end on this, because I think this is where I've met my frustration, Mark, before we call it a day.
Yes, yes.
When the police knock on your door, ask yourself, are they there for you or are they representing the state? Who are they representing when they come to your door? Just ask yourself that. It's probably not you. It's not that you have to start something with them, but just remember, if they're coming to their door, they're
Oh
probably
yeah.
representing someone who's not you.
And they don't even have to come to your door. It's in the title.
Right.
It's called law
Right.
enforcement. It's not serving you. It's not serving Mark or serving Derek. That's not their title. It's not serving the public. I mean, you might see that stamped on the side of some vehicles, but their job is law enforcement. And what that means is somebody made some rules, wrote them down, and these guys are making sure you follow those rules. They're serving the rulers who made the rules. That's in the title. They don't even have to knock on your door to know that.
I love it. All right, sir. Let's call it a day. I
All
just
right,
want to
Mark.
thank Derek
Thank
one
you.
more time. Derek, thanks for your
Sure.
openness, Derek, and sharing where you're at in your
Big time.
thought process. Because I love watching this live, watching you go, hey, this is what I think about this, and this is what I think about that. Oh, cool. Because we know where we were at one point about every one of those same topics. So it's a beautiful thing. Mark, again, thank you. You have an open invitation to the Not Conscious family. Anytime, if you have something you want to talk about, something comes up, just give me a shout. We'll have you come on.
I will.
Do you have anybody coming on your show coming up, or have you kind of slowed that down a little bit on the conversations, or
Oh,
are you?
because of our vacation and other stuff happening, I don't, but I do have some queued up for potential schedules. And also, I've been invited to appear on a couple of other podcasts too, from two of the speakers at the event, Jason Bassler and Chris Hargis. But
As you
yes,
should,
I'm
sir.
trying to
As
line
you
up a
should.
few. Yeah, yes. But thank you again for having me. It's always a
Well,
pleasure
thank you.
to spend time with you. I love it.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad we got to have a lunch and actually get to meet. It's just,
Big time.
once again, it's like people are not real until you physically,
I
like, they're
know.
just not real until you see them.
Yeah.
So and it's great that we just got the three of us together, and I'm just so great to meet your wife as well. So
Yes.
everyone, this has been another Knocked Conscious with the great Mark Maresca. He will free your mind and the rest will follow, just like in Vogue. Everyone, stick around the other side of this. Mark will say our goodbyes, but
I
thank
will.
you everyone for joining us. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.